We're at it again.
We are back from camping. It was really
fun.
good.
It was really good. The Lord definitely blessed us with we had 2 small coolers, and we're like, God, we need a bigger cooler.
Mm-hmm.
So we went to Walmart. Like, Lord, Big Five is not having this sale we want. And we didn't even bother going to Big Five.
They were having a sale. It was like 60% off, but it was still more expensive than just going to Walmart and getting one.
And then Walmart's ended up being on clearance again.
Yep.
So I don't know what it is with that place, but they the Lord uses them constantly for us. It's been good. So then we had a giant cooler that worked for everything, so we didn't have to have 2. And that was super helpful to be able to supply for everyone, because we hosted the kitchen, and then people could come in and use the big 10 by 20 canopy to do all their cooking.
Yeah.
It worked out really well.
It was good.
It was fun.
Yeah, it was really fun. I love camping, and I'll just say camping with kids under like 3 or 4 is hard.
Yes.
And we have 2 of them. We have 2 olders, and I thank God for my 2 older boys, because they help with the little ones.
They're incredible.
Because, oh my goodness, when we were first camping, it was even just the 2 of us, but even then with Alex and Blake, the 2 older ones, when they were little, we fought
it wasn't pretty
much.
We fought. I think is honestly the only time we would fight was camping. This great time, just a time to get away and learn how much how dysfunctional you are,
how you need to communicate better and more. And
so you're put through the pressure. You got to build your house. You got to make food. I mean, you're hungry because you've been waiting all morning. You packed all morning. You forgot something, and it's like the list goes on. And you have all sorts of reasons to dislike everyone, and none of them are legit.
That's true. Yeah, I feel like road trips, camping, like are the few times that we have argued have been over that. And it's really brought out, like,
we were going to Lincoln City once and ended up in Tillamook.
Yeah, that sucked.
I was mad.
We were supposed to meet up with some friends, and we ended up getting there when they were done hanging out, because it took us hours to
show up, and I'm just like, hi, it's so nice to see you.
Yeah, I just stopped putting on a face.
Yeah, just pretending to be happy.
So grumpy.
Yes. Good times.
Like, why did we fight so much?
Demons.
Well, yeah. Yeah, when you let things pester you, it's easy to then get upset at the person that you are now connected with.
I always had like a structured, like, there has to be things done in a certain way. And she didn't operate that way. So that meant she was wrong. I couldn't possibly be wrong. And when you're driving and you miss a turn, you can no longer deal with it. So it all becomes impulsive. And then you lash out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We have very, like, actually we're getting a lot better, but we used to have very, very different communication styles.
Yeah.
The house that I grew up in, we were very, like, private people. If you had something to say, you took the other person. Oh, that wind is, hello wind. You took the other person into the other room and you talked with them about whatever the private matter was. Or you whispered in front of everybody and made it super awkward for everyone else in the room.
Yeah.
Because you were sitting there whispering.
Hey, what y'all whispering about over there? They didn't like that question.
Yeah, my parents were very private people. And so then, like, we came together and, like, just even dealing with problems. So he would want to, like, something came up, we're going to deal with it right now, and we're going to move on, and we'll be good.
And I don't care who's in the room.
Yeah.
They're all dealing with it with me.
They're all going to be witness to us solving this problem. And like, the only time my parents publicly dealt with things is when they were publicly humiliating me.
Ouch.
So public, like, talking in front of people really struck a nerve in a way of just, like, me getting very defensive very quickly because that was what it was tied to, is getting humiliated for something. Like,
well, I'm just thankful. I just thank the Lord that she learned to just shut down in that situation, because then we couldn't deal with it in public, so we had to step aside, and then we would actually hash it out.
my defense
Otherwise, she would put me in my place so fast.
I had a tongue, and I'm just being nice, but it really wasn't. My mom used to ask me, "Why are you so venomous?" Like, I am very gifted in articulating, which is amazing and a good gift that God has given me. But you can use gifts from the Lord for the opposite purpose and be just as effective in the negative sense. Because those gifts are meant to like really hone in on people and just speak the truth and see the truth. And when you see the truth, you can also speak at that truth and then wound further. So there's a responsibility in the gifts that God gives us. And I was very good at seeing the truth and just jabbing my knife in there and being like, well, there it is. And they'd be like, yeah, that hurts. Yeah, I know. That's what I was trying to do. I don't do that anymore.
Yeah. You were pretty good about not doing that to me, even though we had our... Anyway, camping was the one time we would argue the most. Yeah. And then we had learned, hey, if you stop at Subway, you can take food with you and eat it as you're working. That works pretty good. And now we're just good at camping, so it's not as...
Now, like, things come up, but we've learned how the other person operates.
Right.
And we've also learned how to operate together. And that was part of the thing, is you have two... like, for a large part, independent people coming together to coexist in a space you haven't existed in before. And you're, setting up your house and setting up food, figuring out who's going to watch kids, who's going to, do food, and didn't talk about that. So one person would either end up doing everything, and the other person's, just relaxing and having a good time camping. And
oh, yeah. Because all growing up, I didn't have to do anything for camping. Mom and Dad did it. I am Mom and Dad now. Camping's not just chilling anymore. There's work.
Yeah.
Oh man, the setup and the teardown.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot of work. And anymore, we don't even really have to figure out who does what. Yeah. I know she typically sets up the house and I set up the kitchen, and then she comes in and we fine tune the kitchen. We just do it now. There's not much communication necessary anymore because we know what to anticipate from each other.
We've done a lot of aggressive communicating and establishing, well, this is what I do all the time.
This is what I want.
I know what to expect now. Yeah. Establish, this is why I do this. I want the bed set up first because I have to put the kids down early. And if I wait and set it up when it's dark, then I'm trying to put kids to bed when it's dark and set up their stuff. And that sucks, because then you have a screaming, crying child trying to put their bed anyway.
Oh, yeah. Oh, and that's the thing, is as soon as we figured out how to camp, then there's a kid involved.
Yeah.
And it's a whole new ball game. And you have to learn it all over again. And it's like those phases of life, you just have to relearn it over and over again. And then once our kids were grown up, we decided to have more kids. And we started over again.
But this time we had help, which is really nice.
We figured it out a lot quicker with the last two kiddos.
Yeah, which was so nice.
Can I start?
Yeah, please do.
On Exodus 15. This is the song of deliverance when the Israelites were freed from Egypt. Then Moses and the people of Israel sang this song to the Lord. I will sing to the Lord, for he has triumphed gloriously. He has hurled both horse and rider into the sea. The Lord is my strength and my song. He has given me victory. This is my God, and I will praise him, for my father's God, and I will exalt him. The Lord is a warrior. Yahweh is his name. Pharaoh's chariots and army has been hurled into the sea. The finest of Pharaoh's officers are drowned in the Red Sea. The deep waters gushed over them. They sank to the bottom like a stone. Your right hand, O Lord, is glorious in power. Your right hand, O Lord, smashes the enemy. In the greatness of your majesty, you overthrow those who rise against you. You unleash your blazing fury. It consumes them like straw. At the blast of your breath, the waters pile up. The surging waters stood straight like a wall. In the heart of the sea, the deep waters became hard. It goes on, but I'll let you read that chapter on your own. In verse 26, it says, he said, if you will listen carefully to the voice of the Lord your God and do what is right in his sight, obeying his commands and keeping all his decrees. That's really invasive. Keeping all his decrees, then I will not make you suffer any of the diseases I sent on the Egyptians, for I am the Lord who heals you.
Amen.
I love that.
When we keep God's laws and decrees, like the Bible is very, very full of promises. You can just look at one and be like, I want that one. And then you can see what you do to get it, basically.
Yes.
The only thing you have to wait on is the Lord's timing, because sometimes the Lord says your character needs some growth before you get that promise. And we've definitely had a few of those where I'm like, God, I really want this. And he goes, you can have it. Well, guess what? You're going to grow up now, because that promise, that blessing comes with a whole bunch of responsibilities that I want you to walk.
That's for Sarah 2.0. Sarah 1.0 can't have that.
No. So I was actually, that goes in with this very well.
Oh, does it?
So like Jesus talked a lot in like parables, like, and we often use our testimonies to share of the goodness of God. And that's very invasive. It's very, it's good, like sharing the goodness of God in your life. That's really annoying me. It's good sharing the goodness of God in your life. And sometimes, like, when you tell a story, it's not like trying to think of the words. You ever tell a story to someone and like to you, it's obvious. Like, God was so evident in this, and like this happened and this happened. And then they look at you and they're like, what? Like, and that doesn't make sense to me. Like, it just completely drops. And you're just like,
you're saying the mailman did his job. You don't understand.
It's like you see the Lord's hand in it so obviously, and the other person is just looking at you like you're crazy. Well, there's a reason for that, and that's what I was brought to today. And I'm going to read this in Matthew 13, verse 11. 10, sorry. And the disciples came and said to him, why do you speak to them in parables? He answered and said to them, because it has been given to you to know the mysteries of the kingdom of heaven, but to them it has not been given. For whoever has, to him more will be given, and he will have abundance. But whoever does not have, even what he has will be taken away from him. Therefore, I speak to him in parables, because seeing they do not see, and hearing they do not hear, nor do they understand. And in them the prophecy of Isaiah is fulfilled. That goes on to say basically what he just said. Seeing they do not see, hearing they do not hear. It goes on for several verses. And after that it says, but blessed are your eyes, for they see, and your ears, for they hear. For assuredly I say to you that many prophets and righteous men desired to see what you see and did not see it, and to hear what you hear and did not hear it. So there's times that we will have incredible testimonies and incredible like times God has moved, and you see God's hand. I'm eating my hair. God's hand moving so like obviously in your life. Are you laughing at my misfortune?
Well, I was just thinking of eating your hair too.
There's times that you see God's hand so obviously, and then you go to share it with someone else, and they look at you and they're just like, well, yeah, of course. I mean, you just got lucky. Like, to them, it's like
that's pretty common.
They don't see the goodness of the Lord. They don't see all of the hard work that you've been putting into praying, seeking the Lord, walking with him. Like, there's legitimate steps to walking with the Lord.
Yeah.
And they don't see all of that. And to them, they're just like, it was a luck of the draw. Hey, you got lucky. So what? And you're like, no, you don't understand. You don't even understand.
Dude, I was thinking about this today. I don't remember when. Maybe it was in my sleep. But on my old job, at the time I was just a believer that loved the Lord, and we weren't really that involved with churches, but we made a point to always take care of people with our finances, and that was what we viewed our 10% tithe of. So we had no problem sharing and giving to people because we knew approximately how much we were supposed to be giving to the Lord.
Yeah.
And the Lord honored that. He definitely was gracious with us in that time of our life. I don't know if you remember, I ended up with one of the newest, nicest vans for work. And I remember people asking, well, how did you get that? I'm like, I don't know. I didn't think anything of it. And then from that point, and I went into service, I got another one of the nicest service vans, which are those big old Sprinter vans. I could put 16-foot long lumber in the back of it, laying down. I didn't have to prop it up or anything. Just open the door, throw it in, go home and build a deck. And I got paid from home. I could leave at 2 and then come home. My boss was upset that I would leave at 2, but he never actually filed a complaint or anything. He was my superintendent or project manager, actually.
Well, that was when your time to leave was up.
No, I just told him, I'm like, I'm leaving at 2. I don't care where I'm at.
You start at 6 and you left at 2 because it was your 8 hours?
I started at home at 6, so I wasn't putting in 8 hours on the job site.
Oh, okay.
But since I was service, I told him when I took the position, like, I'm going to leave at this time. But even with him not liking it, I still had the grace of the Lord supporting me in that. And I never had to change that method. So I got to come home at a reasonable time to take care of my family. And I didn't think about that till just recently. Is like time and time again, when I was acting righteously and living for the Lord, God blessed me. And people would look at me and be like, why do you have that? How did you get in that position? And I had no idea. Now I do. I get it. It was clearly God that was blessing me. He blessed me with van 55 and whatever the service van.
Well, and that's like, okay, so there's been times that I have done something because God's told me, you need to go do this, and I do it. And then somebody else reaps a blessing because of my obedience. And that like thrills me that someone else got blessed by the Lord because of something I did. And so previously I would just like, I don't like tooting my own horn. I'm also like learning how to do that in the Lord properly.
We're kind of called to toot our horns.
Well, yeah, the verse that
people towards
came
God.
up was just like, let your light so shine before men that they may see your good deeds to glorify your Father in heaven.
So good.
So when you do something and someone gets a reward because you're helping boost that person's ministry, or you're helping like God has you do an act of obedience, and that person then gets blessed by the act of obedience, like you're supposed to say, hey, God told me to do this because I see now he wanted to bless you in this way. So I am so thankful that God blessed you, and I want to I'm just redirecting where the glory goes. Because previously someone would be like, oh, well, like, look, I got this amazing thing. And I'd just be sitting there smiling like, yeah, I know. I literally prayed for you to get that. So I see God worked. And I just sit there quietly and just smile and be excited and miss the opportunity to give God the glory.
Oops.
I thought you had more to say. You went like, I like this.
God deserves the glory. And I feel like starting off in a body of sin, like learning to give God the glory and point people to God, like it can take some work to learn how to bless God's name.
Well, and here's the thing. In what I just read, when you are seeking God's mysteries, and that's what they are, God has hidden a thing. It is the glory of God to conceal a matter, but it is the glory of kings to search a matter out. So like God actually wants us going on the treasure hunt.
Can you say that again?
It is the glory of God to conceal a matter. It is the glory of kings it is the honor of kings to search a matter out.
Kind of like the parables. It's a concealed thought. Okay. So
our responsibility is to look for the truth. And when we do that, God rewards us. It is the ultimate treasure hunt.
Oh, yeah.
And so it says here, 13:12, for whoever has, to him more will be given, and he will have abundance. So when you are seeking, when you are looking for God, looking for his kingdom, looking and like just growing in everything God has for you, he gives you more. You will have abundance. Abundance. But if you're not, whoever does not have, even what he has will be taken away from him. So there is a responsibility in keeping what you have, because the thing is, when you're not using it, the devil comes and goes, I'm going to take that. And that's just what happens. Because we're not using it, we're not actively doing it, so it just sits there on the shelf, and the devil walks by and goes, "Oh, you can see visions? I'm taking that. I don't want you to see visions."
It's just like what you were saying with having gifts that are used for the enemy.
Mhm.
That's the devil taking advantage of you and using your natural gifts to do. I mean, well, your photography was an example of that. Sarah's very creative, and when we weren't walking with the Lord,
that creativity took a very demonic turn. I'll just be honest. Like, I can see literally visions of how the person is supposed to stand and what to do. Like, I see the picture before it's taken, is how I operate. And previously, I was having, like, when I wasn't doing it for the Lord, I would see demonic visions of things. And it would be like, yeah, people were drawn to it because the demons are very good at showing themselves off, and they draw people to the things they're doing.
Yeah, they're very loud. They're very loud. Showing off their power.
And the thing that I've noticed is when I do it for the Lord gives me the visions instead. And the person that is actually the one being ministered to, the one that's doing the session, then gets the privilege of feeling God's presence. They feel loved. They feel beautiful.
Which is so cool to watch.
Which is the goal. Like, literally, when I start doing photography sessions, when I first meet with the person, they're always like, I'm so nervous. I'm so awkward. Like, you can see it in the first 20 photos we do. And I pop through them. So 20 is not even a big number. The first 200 photos, we'll say that. And in the first 15 minutes of the session, you see how awkward they are. But what I do is I speak whatever God brings up. I put them in positions that I see from the Lord, in the settings I see from the Lord. And I just am the eyes and ears and mouth of God to them in what I see for the session. And at the end of it, they are a completely different person. Literally, their character, their soul comes out in the photos. And I have put photos side by side of the first few photos versus the last photos, and it looks like a completely different person.
It's really cool.
It blows me away every single time. And I know it's nothing that I do, because I am not that gifted of a person. Yeah, I can come up with a cool photo, but to have the person actually bloom and blossom in the photo session, that is all the Lord. That is just them receiving from the Lord and receiving the confidence in who they are in the Lord. And sometimes we need people to help us see that, to help us see who we are, to call out our potential.
Yep.
You are cracking me up with your little one-liners. I'm putting the microphone up for a one
I
word.
like nature. This is fun for me.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, the next episode will be in the studio. We thought it would be fun to have a change of scenery, and I think we'll be doing some traveling. So I think we're going to try to film whenever we travel, just film in new locations. I think that would be fun. Yeah, I think that would be fun. But push into hearing the Lord more. Push into understanding the parables. Really press into asking the Lord to reveal his mysteries to you, because that's where the fruit is. That's where the reward is. That's where you get revelations that you're just doing your thing, washing dishes, and you're like, oh, yes. And you just get this crazy mind-blowing revelation from the Lord. When you...
And then you go and tell it to someone else, and they just look at you funny.
Because they're not doing that. When you tell a revelation to someone else who's also seeking it, guess what? They have the ears and the eyes to understand and to see it. When you tell someone that is lost in lies and that is spiritually dead, I'm just going to say that because that's what it is. They're spiritually dead. They're not pursuing that. It literally falls on deaf ears. It's like throwing pearls before swine. They don't recognize the value in what it is, so they're going to stomp on it. Literally smushing into the mud. So recognize that if you are having these revelations, don't be disheartened if you share it with people and they kind of look at you like, okay. Because they may just not have a revelation from God of their own yet. And that's where it also is our responsibility to pray for that person, that their eyes would be opened, that their ears would be open, that they would hear the Lord, that they would be able to understand the Lord. Start praying for these things to come off of people that are in that place, because that's what our responsibility is. When we see someone like that who is spiritually dead because they don't realize they're lost in lies, they're lost in just whatever it is the enemy has them caught up in, we start praying God's truth over them for them to be broken free. And then you start seeing God work, and you start getting excited oh, my prayer is effective. When you see your prayers doing something amazing, it really ignites a passion for prayer. Here it comes. Here it comes.
Yep.
Thanks for watching, guys.
Yeah, that's all I got.
Me too. Be blessed.